They say a signature is just ink. That's a lie people tell before they hand you a pen. My name is Samuel. This is the story of the day my daughter's new husband took $1 million and her car, left a confession letter on our kitchen table, and vanished. It's also the story of how I found him without raising my voice, only my paperwork. Before we begin, if stories about quiet justice and hard lessons mean something to you, stick around till the end. I won't shout. I don't need to. The records do that for me. I met Derek at my daughter Lena's second birthday party. Not really, he wasn't there. But that's how my mind catalogs him. The kind of man who shows up late to everything important and makes you feel rude for noticing. He had a handshake like a politician's, a smile that borrowed light, and a resume that felt like a coat stitched from other people's labels. When he started dating Lena, he came with compliments and solutions. He called me Sir the first time, Sam the second, and family by the third. Do I like him? Lena asked me once, half joking, half pleading. You like who you think he might become, I said. The man he is keeps interrupting. That line earned me 3 weeks of cold weather texts. Dad, please, I'm happy. Don't ruin it by being suspicious. Suspicion only looks like rudeness from the outside. From the inside, it looks like road signs. I asked an old friend, Miller, retired from the police, to run the public stuff. He told me what he could tell any citizen. A shuttered company here, a small claims judgment there. 3 addresses in 2 years. A DBA nickname that matched the domain of a website with no staff page. Not a rap sheet. A pattern. I sat with it. I didn't turn it into a speech. I said, I wish you'd slow down, and then stayed quiet long enough to lose the argument. By spring, they were engaged. By summer, they were married. By autumn, Derek had sold Lena a fairy tale called Streamline and Efficiency. It begins like this. Why don't we put everything on one email so I can handle it for you? Why don't we open a joint account so we can be a real team? Why don't we sign a power of attorney so if anything happens, you're covered? If you're listening and you've never seen a broad power of attorney, picture a master key you promise to keep in a drawer and then forget which drawer. The language is clean and polite. It lets you pay bills and sell cars and move money for convenience. And, if you're a man like Derek, it lets you say, trust me, while the ink is still wet. Lena signed. I didn't find out for 2 months. The isolation came next, softened with good manners. Sunday dinners missed for a last-minute work call. Calls from me that landed in voicemail and came back as texts. Dad, everything's fine. Don't worry. Worry doesn't ask for permission. Red flags don't wave. They whisper. The first whisper was a letter saying, thanks for choosing paperless. We hadn't. The second was a bank alert that a new device had been added to Lena's profile. I didn't add anything, she said. Derek must have. He fixes that stuff. The third was the look on an assistant manager's face when I asked a simple question about a beneficiary change and she said, I'm sorry, sir. I can only discuss that with the account holder. I stopped being polite with my calendar and made an appointment with Julia Reyes, the lawyer who has saved more people with commas than most heroes manage with guns. We're not filing anything, I told her. We're preparing to. We tighten the bolts on the doors and hope I'm wrong. We made a list that didn't need urgency to be right. Keep Lena as the only contact for 2-factor authentication. Get clean copies of statements, confirm titles, print everything. I offered to pay for a session with a financial counselor for the 2 of them. That's controlling, Derek said. That's a gift, I said. He smiled with only his teeth and passed. A week later, the floor gave way. Lena called me at 10:17 on a Tuesday morning, voice small, airless. "Dad, Derek left a note. I think I can't say it." "Don't say it," I told her. "Put the note in an envelope. Don't touch anything else." The kitchen smelled like coffee and bad news. The letter was written on printer paper. Notepads are for people who plan to stay. He confessed the way cowards do. He told the truth, but only the parts that made him the hero of someone else's movie. "I moved $1 million to cover a shortfall. I took the car so I could liquidate it. I'll fix it. You'll see." He ended with, "I love you," as if that were some kind of receipt. I've seen men punch walls when they find a letter like that. I've seen them break plates that never offended anyone. I did none of that. I picked up the phone. Julia answered on the first ring. "Is it happening?" she asked. "It's happened," I said. "Bring the letter and come now." I called Miller. "We're at Julia's," I said. "If you want to do what you do without a badge, today would be a good day." At 11:03, we sat at a worn conference table with a scanner that sounded like a wasp. At 11:06, we had crisp PDFs of everything. The letter, the power of attorney, the last 2 bank statements, the title transfer on the car that had sprouted Derek's name like mold in a basement. At 11:12, Julia had a human being at the bank's fraud desk, not a robot, and the call took on a tone I haven't heard outside of hospitals and flight decks. "We need an immediate recall on 2 outgoing wires," she said, reading the amounts, the times, the destination banks. "Suspicious activity, abuse of authority under an overbroad POA, beneficiary changes without consent. I'm emailing the letter while we talk." On our end, the scanner hummed. On theirs, keys clicked. "We see them," the fraud officer said. "One has fully posted. One is in the clearing queue. I'm flagging both and pushing notices to the receiving banks. We'll mark accounts for escalation. I'll need the revocation of POA. You'll have it in 20 minutes, Julia said. At 11:19, she tucked a pen into my hand, and I signed more amendments in 10 minutes than most people sign in 10 years. We revoked the power of attorney, both general and durable. We restored beneficiary designations to their previous state. We added verbal password requirements that weren't birthdays or pet names. We set 2-factor authentication to a number only Lena controlled. We asked for a temporary freeze on any new trusted device adding to profiles. "This is not overkill," Julia said. "This is oxygen." She filed for an emergency restraining order, what movies call a TRO, and real life calls a rope you throw across a road to slow a truck down. It listed Derek by name, the accounts by number, the car by VIN. She emailed a PDF to the banks, to the court clerk, to me. At 12:07, my phone buzzed with a docket number. Paper can be slow. It can also be lightning when someone who knows where to point it holds it up to the sky. "Now the car," I said. "Now the car," Julia agreed. "And Sam, we do this by the book. We don't go vigilante. We ask nicely, then loudly, then formally. The order in which you do those can save your life. I don't do tracking devices, and I don't break into anything." Lena's car had manufacturer-connected theft protection, one of those subscriptions you ignore until the day you need it. The title had been improperly transferred, and the system still showed Lena as an authorized contact from before the marriage. That's boring to hear until it matters. Today, it mattered. Miller made the calls to his old department. He used phrases I don't use and asked for things only departments can request. The manufacturer would not tell me where the car was. The manufacturer would tell the police where the car was. That's how it should be. While those wheels turned, the money left footprints. The receiving bank on the first wire replied that the account had activity inconsistent with a stable business. Funds in, funds out, debits at a fuel station, and a mid-range motel within the hour. The kind of small trail desperate people make when they think moving is the same as disappearing. The second bank froze everything touching the second wire when Julia's TRO hit their inbox with a clerk's stamp on top. Every hour matters in fraud. So does every comma. Lena stared at the letter and then stared at me. "It says he'll fix it," she whispered, like a child whispering to a tooth under a pillow. "Fear and hope come in the same envelope," I said. "We're not mailing either back. We're building a case." By late afternoon, the first recall had clawed back what it could. Not perfect, but heavy. $900,000 and change halted mid-run, some of it already on its way back to the account it had been dragged out of. The rest had scattered like birds shot at. A few small mule accounts, a cash deposit that they thought was clever. Modern cash deposit machines take high-resolution images of notes. Banks don't care about serial numbers until they do. Today, they did. A supervisor circled back. "We have a match between serials scanned on the deposit and straps from a recent ATM bulk we can trace. Your letter helps. The TRO helps more." At 6:40 p.m., the call we were waiting for arrived. The car had pinged in a motel parking lot 2 counties away. The desk clerk used words like weekly rate and no questions, while pretending he wasn't describing a crime nursery. The police rolled in quiet. Miller stood outside where retired cops stand, close enough to help, far enough not to get in the way. They found the car. They found the laptop. They found printed loan agreements with blanks where signatures go and names I didn't recognize. They found a roll of cash and a map. They found Derek in a room with a television playing and a bag packed. They found the coward part of his confession, not the ink on the paper. Cowardice is not the writing, it's the plan to run. Did I see him? No, I didn't need to. This wasn't a Western. It was a ledger. By morning, with the hotel receipt and the laptop and the bank replies and the court order, the story had shifted from maybe to is. The account freezes became longer than a coffee break. The recall on the second wire finished its work. The car was released to a secured lot, and then, carefully, back to my daughter. I drove her there. She pressed her palm to the hood like it was a sleeping animal. "I kept waiting for him to fix it," she said. "He did," I said, and she looked at me like I'd stopped making sense. "Not with the letter, with the footprints. Men like Derek always fix it. They fix it for the rest of us with the way they move, the mistakes they leave, the arrogance that emails its own trail. You can't con a paper trail. It tells on you." We weren't at the finish line. There were hearings to schedule, affidavits to sign, a prosecutor to brief, restitution to argue, a civil suit to file that would take what criminal charges can't reach and wrap it in a concept called constructive trust. You took what wasn't yours, and now even in your hands it belongs to the person harmed. There were looser ends than I like in a life. There were also more tight knots than my worst day had room for. At lunch, Julia spread documents across her desk the way a surgeon lays out instruments. "Here's how this goes," she said. "Most of the money is back or returning. Some isn't. We'll get judgments for the difference. We'll file liens. We'll attach what can be attached. We'll send copies of that letter to every place it should never have had to go. Lena, We need you to revoke the power of attorney in writing, again, and sign with a notary watching. Then we need to make your phone your fortress. No more shared passwords. No more, he fixes that stuff. If you don't know a setting, ask us. If a bank calls, you call back on the number on your card, not the number they give you. You did not ruin anything. You got conned. The con stops now. Lena cried. Of course she did. People cry for 100 reasons and then call it one. She cried for the man she thought she married, for the version of herself that didn't see it coming, for the voice inside that told her I was old and stubborn and controlling when all I ever was tired of funerals. She cried because shame is a language we teach daughters, and I don't speak it in my house. I'm sorry I didn't believe you, she said, when the room had run out of Kleenex and the silence had run out of nerves. I'm sorry I told you were paranoid. It's all right, I said, and I meant it. You don't have to apologize for wanting to see the best in someone. People make vows at altars because we want to believe. That's not a crime. The crime is on the person who sees that belief and uses it to open a safe. She laughed through tears at the word safe, because the safe in her closet was where she kept emergency cash that wasn't an emergency until a man made it one. I have opinions about safes. If you have one, put more paper in it than money. Copies of titles, lists of accounts, and the phone numbers that don't belong to scammers. A written note that says, "Call Julia first," with an old-school business card stapled to it so you can see the number when the electricity goes out. Miller drove me home. He is a man of very few speeches and exactly the right number of looks that mean I was hoping to be wrong. At the curb, he said, "You handled that without being loud." I used to be loud, I said. It never made anyone honest. You kept receipts, he said, which is our generation's way of saying you were ready. For the record, if you're listening and you've ever signed something for convenience, go find it and read it out loud. You don't have to understand the Latin. Just see if the verbs do things you wouldn't want done in your name. If they do, call a lawyer and make different verbs. Days turned into paperwork. Paperwork turned into meetings. The money flowed back in controlled chunks, like a river behind a dam that engineers trust. The car returned to Lena's driveway. A neighbor waved and asked if we'd found the thief, as if thieves are something you misplace under a couch. No, I said. We found the value of a process. Derek's letter became a piece of evidence with a barcode. The scan of his signature on the sale of the car to himself became a joke in our small circle. Never sign over a thing you can't carry without telling the person who put the down payment on your character. The banks sent confirmations. The clerk stamped a stamp. The detective smiled when the judge said words I will not quote because courtrooms don't need more attention from the wrong audience. One afternoon, I made coffee and put the letter on the table next to Lena's hand. "Read it out loud," I said. She did. By the second paragraph, her voice had become a stranger. "I can't believe I believed this," she said. "You believed because you loved," I said. "That's not stupid. That's human. He wrote it because he thought his love of himself would be enough for all of us." "What do I say to you?" she asked. "You already said it," I told her. And then I said the words I wish every parent had ready for this exact moment. "I'm not angry with you. I was busy protecting you." You may want a scene where I face Derek. You may want a speech where I lay out the ways he failed kindergarten ethics and remind him that "for convenience" is a phrase for printer settings, not marriages. Real life gave me something quieter and better. He faced a table, not me. He heard the list of amounts and dates and account numbers and watched a judge make a clock out of them that will count down until he repays what can be repaid. If you're waiting for the part where he learns, stop waiting. People like Derek don't learn from consequences. They learn from opportunities that disappear. If you're waiting for the part where Lena and I invent a time machine, stop waiting there too. We cannot. We can make a different kind of future. We can make Tuesday dinners again. We can make a habit of letting the phone ring if the number isn't a name in our mouths. We can make a rule in our house that says, if someone says, "Trust me," we look at the document that makes trusting unnecessary. There's a line I keep close now, the way other men keep photographs. I didn't raise my voice, I tell myself. I raised my paperwork. I raised a restraining order. I raised a recall request. I raised a beneficiary form back to its rightful names. I raised a daughter who can look at herself in the mirror and say, I went through a bad thing, and I came out with better boundaries. Not, I'm broken. Not, I'm dumb. A bruise is not a biography. In case you wonder, no, I didn't go home and tear up my doubts or apologize for having them. Suspicion is not the opposite of love. It is love wearing glasses. It says, let me read this for you before you sign. It says, let me hold the door while you decide whether you want to go through it. It says, if this is good, it will still be good after breakfast. I wish I could tell you no one else will ever try something like this with my family. I can't. What I can tell you is that our house is different now. Not louder. Clearer. You know what quiet sounds like when the power goes out, and you realize how many little machines buzz when you aren't listening? That's what our life sounds like now. The buzzing stopped. The important sounds stayed. On the morning the bank posted the last of the returned funds, I made pancakes for Lena like she was 5 again, and the world hadn't taught her every lesson. She ate one standing at the sink the way her mother used to. She said, "Thank you for not saying I told you so." "I'd rather say I got you," I said, and she smiled the first real smile I'd seen on her since June. If there is a cure for shame, it is responsibility paired with mercy. If there is a cure for fear, it is process learned in good weather so it works in bad. If you're still with me, take this and put it near your phone. When a man with a borrowed smile says, "Trust me," find the paper. When a man with a borrowed future says, "It's just a form," read the verbs. When someone you love says, "I think I'm overreacting," tell them overreacting is a word used by people who benefit from your underreaction. We didn't smash a single plate to get here. We filed. We revoked. We recalled. We restored. We drove home slowly behind a tow truck that carried a car with my daughter's name back to the driveway where it belonged. We turned off the engine and listened to the ticking metal cool. We went inside and made coffee and read a letter out loud until it lost its power. People think power is loud. That day, power was a stamp, a signature, a switch on a bank account that said two-factor is required. Power was a father saying, "I'm right here," and a daughter saying, "I know." Power was a friend named Miller making a call that meant my hands didn't have to make the wrong move. Power was a lawyer named Julia who carries lightning in a briefcase and knows when to aim it. I didn't hit anyone. I didn't chase anyone. I didn't wait to be rescued. I built a small, boring raft out of forms and facts and floated us both back to shore. And when I set that letter down for the last time, I didn't forgive Derek. That's not my job. I forgave the part of me that wanted to believe loving my child meant never being the one to say, "Stop." Loving your child sometimes means being the one who says it first. If you're a daughter listening, and your father is suddenly careful, hear the love in that. If you're a Samther listening, and your daughter calls you paranoid, hear the fear in that and leave room for it. If you're a Derek listening, I don't have a message for you. You already read it when you signed the wrong names on the wrong lines. They say a signature is just ink. They've never watched ink hold a family together.